Continuing my coverage of the grandmasters who would be world champion. Ian Nepomniachtchi versus Ding Liren once again. This is actually their first decisive game. The first time these two gentlemen ever faced each other and somebody won the game. There was a lot of draws between them prior to this game, but this was their first decisive game, as I've said. Let's go ahead and get right into it. So e5, or excuse me, e4 is played by Nepomniachtchi, and e5 to follow by Ding Liren. Knight to f3, knight to c6, and we have the Scotch game, pawn to d4, and pawn captures, knight captures, d4, and now bishop to c5, putting pressure on the knight, maybe also putting pressure on f2 for later on, and Nepomniachtchi goes ahead and captures on c6, and there's several different ways you can play this. Queen f6 is actually the most popular, strangely enough. I guess, you're going after that pawn, you're going after the knight perhaps, although almost nobody ever captures the knight with the queen. But this will often lead to a more drawish game, so a lot of times black will go for this, since in this highest level of play, the grandmasters usually are going for draws when they're playing black and wins when they're playing white. Okay, but that's not what happens here. Liren goes ahead and capturing toward the center. You could also capture towards the outside in this position. That does happen often. But yeah, the second most popular move, going ahead and capturing there. B takes c6. And now bishop comes to defend the pawn. Bishop d3. That's a book move there. And d6, played by Ding Liren, is the strongest response in this position. And now, yeah, a very strange move by Jan Nepomniachtchi. I should say Jan, even though in English it's Ian. Jan is how Nepomniachtchi says his name, Jan Nepomniachtchi. So yeah, this is a very strange move. Maybe trying to throw Ding Liren off his trail. Now, you can actually play a pretty aggressive line here where you just go ahead and bring the queen out. Of course, you're threatening checkmate right away on f2. And if castles, well, okay, so if the queen comes out here and then castles, this is probably just lost for white, as you can go ahead and sack the bishop, and this is just going to be very, very dangerous situation for white, but not played in this position. So yeah, considering that Nepomniachtchi brought this opening to the tournament, he probably considered that line very deeply and has good answers for it. You actually would be fine just bringing the queen out, to either bring it out to f3, d2, or even e2, and not a problem. You don't have to castle in that position. It's not forced or anything. So Ding Liren just goes ahead and develops his knight. That knight's coming to g6, and Nepomniachtchi develops his knight to f3, or excuse me, knight to c3 there. And as mentioned, Ding goes ahead and brings his knight to g6, and then Nepo goes after Ding's bishop, and at this level you don't let your bishops fall to knights for the most part in most situations, especially when it's going to be triple pawned. So Liren goes ahead and repositions his knight, and the chase continues here. Best move for Nepomniachtchi is just to go ahead and attack that bishop, forcing him back and giving white a little more space. Although this knight over here is pretty, what is he doing over there? Not really well placed. So a bit of a problem here. Castling is the best move that Nepomniachtchi could have played in this position, and he does. And now that knight moving again to a better location here. Well, seemingly better location, although he's going to be kicked here in a second. Attacking the bishop. And again, yeah, you can't afford to lose your bishops at this level of play to a knight. Yeah, the bishop is just a better piece when there are not many pieces on the board. So yeah, definitely don't want to lose he doesn't want to lose his bishop there. Liren castles here, and now that knight is kicked, and there's not a lot of great spots for that knight, so that's probably why this is the strongest move in the position. If you go there, you're going to be shutting out your bishop, getting pawns closer to your king. That's not good. So Liren does find the best spot for his knight, but it's kind of a lame spot for his knight. It's just not really doing much. Also, taking his bishop kind of out of the game, so kind of an unhappy spot. Nepomniachtchi moves his queen to c2 here, and Ding Liren advances the pawn. And now Nepomniachtchi moves his bishop, and computer suggests that maybe this move would have been better here, but Nepomniachtchi does that next, actually, here shortly. Actually, he doesn't do. Yeah, he does. Okay. So Liren moves the rook over, and now that bishop does come to that diagonal. And Liren moves his bishop, attacking the rook. Well, rooks like open or half open files. So an open file is a file with no pawns. Half open file is like this one here. It just has one pawn. So get the rook out of harm's way. The best move, just find a half open file in this case. And Liren moves his queen to e7. And Nepomniachtchi moves his bishop back, maybe having ideas of coming over this direction or supporting the pawn in case the bishop decides to come down. And Liren attacks the knight, which is defended, but you do want to keep track of loose and semi-loose pieces at all times, so that could be an issue. The computer likes this move here, which I'm not a fan of. I know these grandmasters don't usually give up their bishops, but if he does, that really messes up the pawn structure. This pawn would be isolated here on a4. That one's isolated. That one would be isolated. Seems like a weak position for white. So Nepomniachtchi does not go for that. He goes ahead and just moves his rook over, as the queen is obviously guarding the knight right now. And a bit of a strange move by Ding Liren here. This knight is really not doing much over here. It seems a bit crazy to go ahead and attack the knight, but that's what he plays. He plays knight to b6 here. And Nepomniachtchi actually is happy to go ahead and trade off this very poorly placed knight for a knight that was, maybe a little more useful to Ding Liren. Although an interesting thing here, this seems like a no-brainer to me, going ahead and capturing that knight. The computer actually suggested going ahead and capturing this pawn here, because when pawn captures back, then you can play e5, and the bishop is trapped. There's no place for the bishop to go. Of course, he could go down here, but then the pawn comes up and attacks, and that bishop has nowhere to go. But if black plays properly, like probably a queen to e6, I think, yeah, you can take the bishop with the pawn, but then you're going to lose this pawn here, and your pawn structure is going to be completely destroyed on the king side, and you're equal material, basically. You trade your knight, you trade your knight for the bishop, essentially, and you mess up the pawn structure on the queen side for black, but your pawn structure is messed up on the king side for white. So yeah, Jan didn't play this move, and he probably considered all that. I think that's part of the reason why he brought the bishop back to f2 in the first place. But yeah, he just goes ahead and captures, knight captures on b6, and pawn captures on b6. I should say a captures, differentiating between the a pawn and the c pawn. So the a pawn captures on c6, and Nepomniachtchi moves his rook back to e1 now, defending that central pawn and perhaps getting ready to push. Bishop c4 played here, attacking the a2 pawn, and just simply blocking with pawn to b3, forcing the bishop back to e6. So yeah, Liren plays bishop to e6, and now Nepo advances his a pawn, which has no pawns in front of it, although there is a b6 pawn to stop him. And now Liren brings his rook from the f file over to d8. So rook f d8 is played by Ding Liren. And Nepomniachtchi goes ahead and just plays b4, pushing the pawn. We have bishop to c4. So Ding Liren plays bishop to c4 here. And now Nepomniachtchi goes ahead and plays b captures c5. And then we have b captures c5 once again. And the rooks are facing each other. So Nepomniachtchi goes ahead and trades rooks. And yeah, white center is very strong here. So I kind of feel like those trades were really good for white in this case. And Nepomniachtchi goes ahead and plays pawn to e5. And we have captures, pawn captures, d captures e5. We have f captures e5. And it looks like you might be able to capture this pawn here and maybe get a material advantage here. But you actually can't do that. I always tell my students, you got to think about checks, you got to think about captures, you got to think about loose and semi-loose pieces. So if the bishop captures, this is a blunder. That's not what was played in the game. And the reason is this is a semi-loose piece. He's got one attacker and one defender. And then this is a loose piece. Can you find the fork that shows why this is the wrong move? Give you a second to think about it for those of you who are interested. But yeah, you just play queen here, and now you're attacking the loose bishop. You got two attackers on this bishop, and so you're going to lose that game. You're going to lose a bishop. So that is definitely not what was played. Back up. Ding Liren actually just repositions his bishop. He can't take that pawn, and he knew that. And now Nepomniachtchi, maybe, his candidate pawn there, this guy's a passed pawn. He's going for the attack, or he's going for possibly getting another queen. Computer suggests going ahead and sacrificing the pawn here might be best. Bishop would capture, the queen's defending, seems a bit crazy, but anyway, Nepo's move definitely makes sense. Ding Liren goes ahead and plays pawn to g6. And now the queen comes to, so Nepomniachtchi brings his queen to e4. And Ding Liren queen to e6, which was the strongest move in position. And Nepomniachtchi goes ahead and picks up the free pawn here. That was the best move. So the queen was defending, and Liren, Ding Liren needed to defend his bishop or move his bishop, and now he loses the pawn. And so Nepomniachtchi actually has a 1-point advantage at this point. H5 played by Ding Liren here, which was the strongest move in the position. And now we have bishop to d4 by Nepomniachtchi. And Ding Liren goes ahead and brings his rook down, putting pressure on the pawn. Maybe thinking about coming over here to a3. That would be a good spot for that rook to win this scary, scary pawn. So at this point, Nepomniachtchi has to bring his rook to a1. The computer says that's a brilliant move. Seems like an obvious move. You got to do that, or that pawn is not going to make it. And now Ding Liren goes ahead and attacks the bishop here, hoping to kind of playing a removing the defender tactic so that he can win this pawn here. But Nepomniachtchi ignores it and just goes ahead and plays pawn to a6. You can't take the bishop. If you take the bishop, then we've got, of course, pawn to a7. And yeah, you're toast. There's going to be a new queen on the board. Liren goes ahead and captures the pawn. So we have bishop captures a6, and Nepomniachtchi finds the very strongest move in this position. Queen here, whoops, queen to a8. Queen to a8 check. Now we've got two attackers on the bishop, so the bishop will fall. Not a lot that can be done about that. And the game is probably just about won for white. It's really hard to play from Ding Liren's perspective here. Probably the best move here would just be get the king out of harm's way. You're going to lose that bishop. There's no way to save it. But queen to c8 is played here, which the computer is calling a blunder. You can see the evaluation bar swinging wildly in white's favor here. So yeah, if white plays precisely, this definitely should be a win for white, but you know, he's playing, you know, this is going to be a tough game for both players. And Nepomniachtchi goes ahead and just captures on a6. So rook takes a6 is played, and now we have rook to b8. So it seems like the queen is hanging here. You know, the rook is under attack. Perhaps a bit of a dangerous position. But, you know, there really is only one absolutely winning move here. And Nepomniachtchi does find it. Jan Nepomniachtchi does find that correct move. But maybe pause your videos for a second. What would you play here? Kind of think about it. Definitely pause your video. Take some time. It took Nepomniachtchi, he spent 4 minutes on this move. So he definitely took his time and considered it. But I'm going to go ahead and reveal that move now. He just simply pulls his bishop back to f2. And the computer calls that a brilliant move. Okay, but it's definitely winning. Well, it is the only winning move. So I suppose that is a brilliant move, right? And now Ding Liren plays king to g7. Now, I mean, obviously, if we back up here, I should mention. Whoops, I got the wrong keyboard here. You can't really, you're not going to win anything by taking the queen, because they can just capture back with their rook. So rook takes queen, rook takes rook. The bishop supports the rook, and the new rook would be pinning that to the king. So you're not winning anything there. So yeah, for that reason, Liren goes ahead and moves his king to g7, which is really something he should have played earlier, and he would have had chances for a draw. Instead of playing queen to c8 earlier, he should have played king to g7 then, but now it's too little too late, really. So Nepomniachtchi plays queen to c6, perhaps offering a queen trade, and Ding Liren goes ahead and plays rook to b1 check, driving the king to h7, and now queen black. So Ding Liren plays queen to f5, protecting that f6 square. Not allowed. Well, I guess the bishop's already protecting that anyway. And now Nepomniachtchi plays queen to e4, queen to e4, and it was in this position on move 40 that Ding Liren resigns the game. He's down that bishop. He lost that bishop, so he's down a full 3 points. And you basically have to trade queens here. We obviously have this fork here, attacking the queen, attacking the rook. But yeah, trading queens when you're down a bishop, that's a lost game at this level. There's no way that Ding Liren's going to be able to climb back in this game. And you do have this like checking move here, I suppose. Bishop checks, but pawn blocks, and there's just nothing to be done. So yeah, it is here on move 40 that Ding Liren resigns the game, and this was the first decisive games between these two world championship contenders. If you don't already know, of course, Ding Liren and Jan Nepomniachtchi are going to be facing each other early next year for the World Chess Championship title. But yeah, thank you for joining me for that. Please like and subscribe, as I will be making many more videos. I'm going to be covering every decisive game between these two gentlemen in classical to start with, and then I'll probably come back around and get some of the rapids and stuff like that. But yeah, if you're into chess, I will be posting tactics, game reviews, and I would like to hear, if you have any suggestions of videos that I can do. Yeah, I'm looking for more options for content because I will be posting at least one video every day. All right. Thank you for joining me. Bye-bye.